But anyway, speaking of residual heat or heat in general, the next segment, I was 2/3 of the way through it, maybe 3/4 of the way, maybe almost all the way before I realized, how about you, that Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits aren't supposed to be heels. Did you have the same miscompunction about this whole situation?
I thought they were heels. I think they were heels.
But how can they be heels when a group of 5 people comes out and attacks them and beats the shit out of them?
I'm not disagreeing with you. I think they were heels. I think at a minimum they were ambiguous. You want to talk about something you rewound and watched several times?
Wait a minute.
Bobby Lashley.
No, I know Bobby Lashley's a married man. I know him personally. He's not
sexually.
Now the other two,
in terms of wrestling friendships, I guess right now that's how you look at it. But I watched that Bobby Lashley getting dropped on his head thing over and over again here.
Oh, well, let's tell the people what happened from the start so they'll share in our confusion. Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits come out, and they are dressed in the suits, and they've got the jewelry, and Lashley is dressed. Remember, they were dressing in athletic gear, and Bobby dressed him up, and he's took him under his wing, blah, blah, blah. It's a story that they've been telling. And even though Bobby's strength, as we mentioned, is not the promo, he was out there, and their resolution for the new year is to take everything they deserve in 2024. And then the Prophets said some things, and I don't know what they were fucking talking about. And then Bobby declared that he was in the Rumble, but the whole time I'm thinking, okay, he's reformed, in effect, Hurt Business 2.0, same kind of flavor with the suits and they're going to take over. It's a group, but they're obviously heels. They're dressing that way. They're acting this way. They're talking this way. And then suddenly, here's Scarlett and Karrion Kross on a screen. And then they come out of the entranceway. Scarlett's got brown hair now. I'm not sure that was a positive step in the right direction. And then out from behind them comes Paul Ellering. They're in the entranceway, but then suddenly, these two fat fucks jump in a goddamn ring behind the Lashley and the Street Profits. And the announcers oh my God, they have to immediately identify him because everybody's like, Like when your dog can't figure out why you've changed his brand of dog food. And the announcers, that's AOP, Razor and Akin. And they jumped so I wrote, wait, Lashley's guys are the baby faces. And one of the AOP, because even though they gave both their names, I don't know which is which, and they were all moving around the ring. One of them over and over got on top of one of the Street Profits and fake punched the vicinity of his head. And then Karrion Kross jumped in and joined it. And they double power bombed the Street Profits. And then, as you mentioned earlier, Karrion Kross gave some kind of modified. At first, I thought it was going to be a power slam, and then it turned into some fucked up F5 and dropped him head first on the goddamn mat. I mean, if Lashley was a normal human, it might have hurt him or killed him. But since he's a mutant freak, I guess he's okay. We haven't heard anything, but it wasn't because the guy didn't try. I feel bad for Bobby Lashley and poor Paul Ellering. And somebody said on Twitter, Paul Ellering is 70 years old. And he's out there looking at this fucking shit. How did they get him involved in this?
Well, you remember the last time Akam and Razor were in WWE, because they were released. I don't know what the exact term was. They were one of the many people released, either right before the pandemic or during the pandemic or after the pandemic. He was their manager. And it was a weird thing because, all due respect to Paul Ellering, and obviously did a lot for the Road Warriors business-wise, and he could do a good promo, he wasn't exactly like, oh, that was the greatest manager. I hope he comes back and gets another run. So it was weird when all of a sudden Paul Ellering's managing these two guys, and then they were gone. In the meantime, Kross and Scarlett.
Well, and let me be fair to Paul. He, for almost the entirety of the Road Warriors run, he was a babyface manager, so he had to be somewhat less flavorful than us heels because it didn't work the other way. Look at it would have been a hat on a hat to be a fucking nut with the Road Warriors.
Part of the problem too is his promo works better when he looks crazy, not when he just looks like a guy who's like, I'll come in for the taping. That doesn't really work.
Well, I felt bad for it because at least he's a star. At least he's a star.
Well, what'd you think, Scarlett? New
and
hairdo?
Lashley. No, not that. No, she needs to get the bottle of peroxide back.
And Karrion Kross, new hairdo.
The fact that he has hair at all was his downfall.
Will they get MVP to counteract Paul Ellering?
Well, no, let me just say this, that with Karrion Kross, I'm officially saying at this point, there ain't going to be no LA Knight comeback story here. We might as well call a time of death on the Karrion Kross experiment, which sounds like a 70s sci-fi movie, because he's done now. We've seen what the fuck. It ain't going to happen. If Scarlett wants to be a star in wrestling, it's going to be with somebody else, and she ought to have blonde hair. Because, they're making everybody at AEW dresses in black. Everybody in WWE wants to fucking either have black hair or wear black. It seems like, my God, they're taking all of the color out of everybody. And in the AOP are two big fucking guys of what was that? Oh, the tag team that I'm thinking about. The two fat brothers.
The Headhunters?
Well, not them, but there was an indie team.
The Undertakers, Double Trouble?
Yeah, there you go. They were Italian back in the Northeast.
I think Val Puccio was one of them.
It looked the same. There's two fat guys trying to be tough, and we didn't know who they were, and there was no goddamn reason for us to care when they're beating up people and we thought they were heels to begin with. And then their shit looks horrible. The one guy just was on top of whoever the prophet was. I couldn't see. He was covered up and the other guy's fat. And just swinging his fist in the neighborhood of the guy's head. And what the fuck? Anyway, I feel bad for Bobby Lashley and Paul Ellering. One a star of the past, the other a star of the present, who might not be a star of the future if he don't get out of this business.
What about bringing back MVP? Put him with Lashley again. You got to have Omos there as their backup. And now you get Ellering and MVP to do promos.
You had me sold until you mentioned almost.
Well, I haven't heard that he's released, so I figure he has to come along.
Maybe he escaped.
Maybe he escaped.